And we are back live for another Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo with Chris Aceto, and we are here to do the official Super Bowl post-game show. Oh, wait a minute. That's not us, Chris.
The Yankees won, Dave. I'm in the wrong sport.
KC just kicked the field goal. I think there's, like 8 or 9 seconds left? So they're up by 3.
That's it. Dave, is Kansas City in Missouri or Kansas? Trivia.
Missouri. Pretty sure.
But there's a Kansas City, Kansas.
That's where Tanya Knight lived.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There is a Kansas City, Kansas, though, too. I think this is the Kansas City, Missouri, though.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, so they got to kick the ball off now with only a couple seconds left. So.
Dave's doing play-by-play.
Yeah. You know, this Patrick Mahomes is you got to be commended because, he sprained his ankle in the middle of the game. And he came out and he was playing, running on the thing. That's a true champion,
Well, the guy prepped my guy for the USA, got him the perks. We're getting ahead of. I can't.
We're going to talk about we're going to talk about. You know why I wanted to talk about 1993, Chris?
20-year anniversary.
It's been 30 years. Can you freaking believe it?
Oh, is it 30? Holy shit! Dude.
30 years. 30. Nuts.
30.
Can't even believe it.
I have a great boat story with DeMeo after the.
Yeah. What's the story?
Did Paul win in 93? Did he win in 94?
DeMeo won the Nationals in 94.
Okay, 94. Oh, he came up to Maine like a week later to celebrate. We took. I had a 33-foot Chris Craft and we took it out.
That's a nice boat.
Yeah. I also had a 42-foot Silverton a year later. I had 2 at one time.
You had it at the same time? I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I thought I could. Yeah, long story.
All right, they won. So, KC's the Super Bowl champs.
Did they win?
Yeah. And we're announcing it live too, Chris. Doesn't it sound more relevant?
Yeah. Well, get Sid on, and it sounds like more important than Fox News.
For all the people that tuned into our show rather than watch the end of the Super Bowl, that I had to give them the results at least. So.
Well, you could get Sid on this show, and it could sound more official.
Oh yeah. If I did a post-game wrap-up with Sid, it would be like
detailed.
Howard Cosell, yeah.
Yeah. So when Paul won the Nationals, he came up to Maine. I met him in Old Orchard Beach. We drove to Portland, South Portland, and we went to this marina. And when we went out early in the morning. And when we came back early evening, it had some historic, crazy, wackiest tide of the century. And it's hard to explain because Maine already has 15-foot high and low tides each day.
So the boat was all over the place, huh?
So we couldn't see that. We couldn't see the mud flats were so high and the water was so low. We couldn't see. We couldn't see where the marina is when we came in.
When you were piloting your boat, captaining your boat in that type of weather, were you like a cool cat or were you panicking?
I knew the area, So it's in
the area. The boat's like this, it's scary. I've been in boats like that.
But I mean, there's nothing. You know what? If there's anyone on a boat in rough seas, you don't have them say, "Geez, we should call State Farm or Allstate." They say, "Oh God," because there's always in rough seas. There's always the idea that the boat can sink. You realize how easily the boat could sink in really rough seas because it seems big, when you're when you're in the bay or something. But when you go out and you're not in the bay and the water gets rough, it gets scary quick.
We were in the bay with my my uncle Frankie, may he rest in peace. He was taking us back from Fire Island, and my father was petrified of the water because he claims he couldn't swim. I don't know if that was true or not, but so we were in the boat, and the tide, it was night, and the tides were really, it was
oh yeah.
And my uncle's the boat's and it's not a huge, it was probably a 25-foot boat, and there was nowhere to go. There's no inside. And it was raining a little bit, and my father was so scared but he was trying to be cool for all of us, you know. But I could tell my uncle's like, stay by me. He goes, because he's like, your father, don't go by your father, because he saw my father was petrified. He's like, it's not a big deal. He goes, we'll have fun. He put this rain jacket on. He put the rain jacket on me, and you know, it wasn't cold, but we limped back to shore. Eventually, we got back, and my father was he must have had about 3 bottles of wine after we got back, you know.
Are you familiar with Barnegat, New Jersey? Because when you were out in Long Island.
Yeah, no, I don't. Where's that? Jersey Shore?
Yeah, Barnegat Inlet is the scariest inlet ever. I almost sank my boat there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You read it. You know, there was no internet when I went down to New Jersey.
Yeah.
I had this boat like on East Coast cruising, and everyone warned about the Barnegat Inlet, but there's no Google, so you have to like read in the book. You know, what are they talking about?
You're looking at maps. People don't realize when you used to boat, when you were boating, it was maps, right?
Yeah, a map, and I had a GPS in '95, and nobody had them. They were like,
I was gonna say no one had those. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? $7 grand for GPS.
Yeah.
And when I came into anyways at Barnegat Inlet, all of a sudden you're coming in, it looks calm enough. All of a sudden you're on the top of a wave. You're on the top of it. It came out of nowhere.
Oh my God.
You know, you're on a wave, and you're like cresting down, like you're gonna be a submarine. You know,
yeah.
Very scary area, Barnegat, New Jersey.
That's when you start saying to yourself, maybe this is a little more than I chewed off.
Yeah.
What's with the Joe Rogan died rumors going around? I know one of our people just posted in the thing, but there was a rumor going around that there was a hoax. That Joe Rogan died. No, he didn't die.
No, I thought you said diet. I hope he didn't.
Oh no, they said he died.
Yeah.
But
no, that's ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Yeah.
Conspiracy against him. That he's not talented.
I will say this, unfortunately, prior to the show, my 2.5-pound Yorkie, who was 11 years old, died in my arms. Very sad. She wasn't breathing right. I had a bad feeling. I held her. I brought her upstairs, put my kids to bed. I was holding her. My kids like, how can you holding Diva? I'm like, she doesn't feel good. I don't know. I had a bad feeling. And they're like giving her pets. And I bring her downstairs right after the kids go to sleep. And sure enough, that's it. She died right in my arms. Very sad. Any of you guys out there who have pets know it's terrible. Of course, I internalize it. And then I'm like thinking, well, maybe this is a bad omen. Like I'm going to. Like I'm gonna die or something like that. Of course, I had to make it about myself, Chris. That tells you what a true egomaniac I am, you know. But it is sad. It's so you know what it is. People get more sad over their pets dying than people dying, and I think it's because we're not afraid to let emotions out about our animals. Whereas with people, we try to be cool about it, and we try to act mature about it, but with animals, we just blubber, and I haven't cried yet, but I probably will cry at some point in the next couple of hours after the show's over. But very sad. Diva, rest in peace.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the topic at hand, which is 30 years ago today. Well, not today, but 30 years ago in 1993, we had 2 incredible pro qualifying competitions. One was the USA Championships. One was the Nationals. We'll talk about the USA first. The reason it even came into my wheelhouse is because Don Long posted a video on his Facebook. I'm going to pull that up. It was just kind of just showed.
Don came on the scene after that, like 95, I think.
He was in that show, Don.
Was he?
Yes, he was.
Which one?
He was in both of them, I think, right?
No, not the USA. Maybe the Nationals.
Hold on.
You go through. I was at both shows, so.
Yeah. 1 second.
And then I just said 20 years ago before we started, but maybe we were on the air.
Yeah, National. Yeah.
30 years ago.
Let's talk about the USA first, because you're right. Don was in the National. Sorry, I made a mistake. So
USA was
Cormier.
Yeah, I had prepped Cormier for 91 USA, which Wheeler won.
Right.
And so I moved to Maine, and then so I stopped prepping Chris, and I knew he was prepping himself, but I was prepping Mike Francois, and I just thought, like, oh,
one of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. and it was a brutal prejudgment. It was a 1-point decision. Yeah, it was like 8-7, 7-8.
I actually thought Mike looked really good at that show too.
Yeah, well, Cormier be pissed, but he had the hometown advantage. It was in Santa Monica,
right?
And so you get all the California judges who knew Cormier, and nobody knew Mike at the time, really. Not really,
Right.
I'm just making fun, Chris. Chris looked good there. Chris wore. No, is this 93?
Yep.
Is it 93? This looks like footage from Okay, yeah.
John Hansen posted this. It has to be accurate.
Yeah. John, don't make any mistakes. So it was, it was the days when the Nationals was just bodybuilding, no women's bodybuilding, no fitness figure, all that.
This is USA. But yeah.
Yeah. Was Dexter in this show?
I'll tell you exactly.
Is this the show Dexter was overlooked at? Or was
no. That was 95 Nationals.
Yeah. So
it was Cormier first, Francois second, DeMeo third. Yeah.
This is the year. I know Chris's work schedule back then. Ask Chris how many hours he worked between bouncing and security guards. It was a gazillion hours. I mean, he was working.
Is expensive. No contract.
He was working. Prepping for this show. Maybe, I bet, 60 hours a week between. Just what I said. Security guard stuff. Everyone did security guard stuff in LA at the time.
Yeah. That's when he almost had a fight with Mike Tyson, remember?
Yeah, and bouncing. He did bouncing too.
He looked good.
Yeah, I think it was like 20, when my son came out to the Olympia, he asked Chris lived one street over from me back then in 92, 91.
What do you think cinched it for Cormier?
They liked the same thing that always 100% was his shape and flow. Period.
Back then, though, you got to remind people, Chris, the USA was always a West Coast guys show. They always went for the guys with shape, and then the Nationals was always a monster. The big thick guys from the East Coast used to win those. Yeah,
and I mean Chris's calling card as a pro was the same as why he won that show, is that he had balance, shape, symmetry, condition. Right. Nothing was overwhelming. It's just the sum of the parts. He had beat a lot of people, and at that show, he was, he was a favorite going in, but he was also lived up to the hype because he brought, the year before look, but a little bit bigger.
Now, what happened to DeMeo at that show? Because you had been working with DeMeo prior to that. We know, we heard the Junior National story. We heard the story when he had to, go again. He lost to Levrone in 91 at the Nationals. What made him, you weren't working with him at the USA though, right?
I don't know. It was pre-Instagram, so it was hard to get into people's heads. You know what I mean? Now somebody got into his head that Chris doesn't know what he's talking about. And so he prepped with Joe McNeil that year. And all I heard is, you're going to see something special. And, when he came on stage, it was like a dud.
Isn't it crazy, Chris, when you think about it? You've been prepping people for like probably 35 years, right?
Okay. Yeah. And I still hear I know nothing. Sean Ray says that. Sean Ray says I've climbed my way through 3 decades.
It's very impressive that you're still doing it at a high level. I mean, because a lot of guys burn out, they just don't want to be bothered anymore. So a lot of the guys that were prepping people back then aren't doing it anymore. So you're still going strong, and it's your second profession. It's not your main job. That's the funny thing.
Sean Ray said, I've been conning people for 35 years, and if he probably would say I'm the George Santos of contest prep.
Oh shit,
Dave, it's so crazy that when you said it was 20, 30 years ago, because I'm like, oh yeah, USA, that was 20 years ago, because Dave said before the show started, why I'm gonna do the 93, I say 93 USA Nationals. I said, yeah, 20-year anniversary. You said 30. So I'm aging you, Cormier and Mike Francois.
Yeah. It's crazy to see how young these guys. You know what? Chris still looks exactly the same. That's the funny thing. Chris hasn't really aged. If you look at him,
he
doesn't have a line on his face. The guy, he looks exactly like he did, back then.
I treat him the same too. It's funny, you treat other people like, oh, they're old now, and they're like really old and like, they're brittle. Cormier is like if Cormier didn't have injuries, he probably could have been a Dexter. He could have been going on and on and on. It's just that he had injuries. That's all.
Yeah, no, you're right. All right, let's then segue then to the Nationals, where Francois came back, and I actually thought he was better at USA. I said it earlier, but it seemed like, I think they used to, back in that day, if they kind of screwed you or if it was close at a show, if you did the next one, usually they would throw you that show, even if it was close, right? I mean, because Newman was really good at this show, too.
Newman was great. And we went, Dave, it's so funny that it seems like 20 years. It seems like 2 years ago, because that one was in Santa Monica. And me and Mike went out to Santa Monica for like a week out, which I loved.
Where was the Nationals? Was that in New Orleans?
Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, Fort Lauderdale, okay.
And so we went down to Fort Lauderdale when Fort Lauderdale was nothing, like, compared to the way it is now. I'm thinking real estate. And it was a sleepy, town. And Mike came in, bigger than ever. And
let's see if you can name everyone, Chris. Hold on.
Okay, I gotta get the glasses out, Dave. Yep.
This was not the top 5, but this was just the lineup. So,
that's Dean Caputo.
Right, Dean Caputo, right?
Yep.
Hold on. I get it.
And then you got Edgar Fletcher.
All right. Dean Caputo, who owns the Powerhouse Gyms in Ohio. He ran a lot of shows. He's a very good friend of mine. Dean's awesome. He probably should have been a pro for sure back in the day. He ran up against some seriously
he was like guys. A Mendenhall, Dave, right? In other words, Mendenhall lost to Haney. People were losing. It's like when Dave, when DeMeo was losing, and he'd get upset, like, but no, I said, listen, this is a quote from me. This guy Wheeler's going like all the way. Even when he lost to LeBron, I said, this guy LeBron is not your average I'm turning pro type guy. I said, he's going all the way. And Paul would say, like, what do you say that about everyone? I said, no, I've said it about the two guys who beat you. So Caputo was
the next guy could have been Mr. Olympia if he wasn't such a mental case, but
Edgar Fletcher. Everyone was afraid of Edgar.
He was incredible. You know what the problem was? He cheated on his diet. And the reason I know this is because Jim Mannion told me back in the 90s. He said he would look out his window, the NPC gym window, and he would see, and Edgar's from Pittsburgh, and he would see Edgar cheating on his diet, sitting on the street corner, eating like a donut or something like that. And he'd run outside. He said, I'd go all the way down the steps and go out there. I said, Edgar, what are you doing? You got the Nationals coming up, or you got USA coming up. I just need a little extra carbs.
Yeah, that muscle looks so much like Victor Terra. It's ridiculous through the shoulders, arms.
He was deadly looking, this guy. He easily would have been a very dangerous pro. Look at those arms and legs. Oh, my God.
The abs, Look at that. He was absolutely phenom.
Now, that's Anthony DeRezzo, our friend
from Rhode Island.
Who's no longer with us. He didn't even place at the show. That's how good the show
was. No, it was too flat. He thought he was flat here, Dave. I mean, look at these guys. Huh?
This was before we were friends.
No,
this
I didn't know either. I just knew of him via DeMeo because was he Italian?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Anthony DeRezzo, and he was Italian, and it's like DeMeo was Italian.
Small club, yeah.
New England.
Anthony was a great guy. Great guy. I'm sure he's watching down on us right now and laughing that I'm showing this picture. All right. Then you had Don Long, who this was his first national show, right?
Oh yeah. You know what? I didn't even know Don Long was in the show. That goes to show how good the class was. Because Don would have been like a B version of Don, but he would have been a B version of Edgar. Mike Francois.
There's Mike.
Is this the USA?
Great. This is National.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Mike posted Jam from Michael Jackson, which was like, I thought, out of character.
The X-Man, Tony Freeman.
Crazy. Look at Dave, hold that.
Hold on, let me bring it back a little bit. Hold on.
Tony looked like, with that mustache, looked like the guy at the bar. who married
the Barger, Rick James.
No, who married not Latoya Jackson, Janet Jackson.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Isn't that funny? I think Tony might have jimmied up the arms as we went on because look at those arms got gigantic.
His arms got huge, yeah. But this is when he was very young here. Who's this now?
Very young.
I can't remember his name.
Oh gosh, he's from Florida, Dave. I can give you the state.
I know who he is. I used to talk to him. I can't remember his name. Nice guy.
Anyone in the peanut gallery know?
Yeah, and then Dennis Newman, who was phenomenal here. Phenomenal.
Oh yeah, look at the delts. Look at the delts. Yeah.
Oh, let's go back to Dennis for a second.
Ken Castagnoli.
Ken Castagnoli, who was placed, and then who's this? Charles Durr?
No, go back. That is I forget who that is, Dave. I forget. Both.
Let's go back though. Let's go back for a second to Dennis Newman for a second. I thought Dennis was incredible here.
Oh yeah. I
mean, no one would have complained if Dennis Newman would have won,
nope.
but it wasn't his turn, and that's how this worked back then. Because Francois probably should have won the USA, and they said, "All right, well, you do nationals, and we'll give you nationals." That's how good the guys were. People don't realize the guys were so good back then that multiple guys should have turned pro, but they had to wait their turn almost.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Dennis. Then you had Kenny Castagnoli, who was what, fifth, I think.
Yeah, I think he won junior nationals that year, junior USA. Yeah. I don't think this guy would have won this year's nationals, no matter what.
No.
I forget who that was.
Isn't that Greg Reed? This guy?
No. I don't think it's Greg Reed. No.
I thought it was because I remember I was friends with him.
Call. Who sent it to you?
Don Long tied that up.
But our first finalist.
Oops. I hear Lonnie Teeper's voice.
Was a fourth place finisher in the 92 junior nationals. The first time I saw him was the 93 nationals. He was 224 pounds.
Oh, this Don Long's posing routine. Hold on. All right. So that, I mean, that's not even the guys all the guys who won. So it was Francois first, Dennis Newman, then Edgar Fletcher, Don Long fourth, Dean Caputo fifth, Tony Freeman sixth, and Anthony DeRezzo was seventh. So and
that was what, 93?
93 nationals, 30 years ago.
And let's see, Jay would have won the T nationals or his class in what, 93?
Yeah, I think so. You
because I think yeah.
What a great show that was. But the guys were so good back then. I mean, look at Don Long. I mean, Don would have won nationals this year looking like that, right? This past nationals, he would have won that easily, looking like that.
I just go back to Edgar Fletcher we would have been.
Well, Edgar Fletcher would have, he would have devoured.
We would have been talking about getting him into the first pro show and demolishing that and going right to the Olympia.
Absolutely.
He had a vacuum. He had crazy quads. And
this is why, when people say, "Oh, these guys talk about the old days," there's a reason. The guys it just happened to be an era where there was a lot of good guys competing. I don't think it means that. I think it just the genetic gene pool was great back then. I don't know why.
Well, Dave, I think in the defense of what's happening now, like if there was just open bodybuilding, maybe now.
That's true, right?
Maybe some of these guys in the men's physique and guys in the classic would only be competing. I mean, remember Bump said, he won the North Americas, in bodybuilding. So, I mean, some of the guys who would be good are just not doing open bodybuilding anymore.
Right. That's true.
Don was skinny back then compared to what he would become in a year or two.
Yeah. But
so was Tony Freeman. Tony Freeman was very skinny.
Tony Freeman was skinny too, yeah. And then Tony tore his pec shortly thereafter, and he went at it, and he disappeared for about 8 years, right?
Yes, he disappeared.
He didn't come back till 2002 when he beat me at the Nationals, and he was first, I was second. So He had been out for 5 or 6 or maybe 7 years because he thought he would never be able to compete because he couldn't get the pec repaired. Remember, he had a pec tear.
Yes.
And he got it fixed to the point where it was functional, but it still had a little divot there. But you know, it wasn't terrible, and he was able to train again. And then he made that comeback, and he wasn't great in 02, but right after that, like 2 years after that, he blew up, and he went through his growth spurt, and he really
remember
came into his own.
Me and Jay had seen him in Atlanta somewhere. I think he had just either got like first or second at the Nationals, or it was around this time. So maybe he was in the top. He was like a top guy, and Jay was, not competing at that level yet. And he saw Jay in the gym and just freaked out and said, who are you? But the funny thing is, he recognized Jay as like, wow, this guy's gonna wow, he's crazy. And I remember Jay saying like, oh, that guy's good, he's just thin. And then when he won the Nationals, he said, remember the thin guy? Because Jay's got the crazy memory.
Yeah. Jay
said, remember the thin guy, Tony Freeman, we met in the gym in Atlanta? And I said, yeah, I remember. He had the Hutskins outfit on, the yellow one.
He's still wearing it today, yeah.
He said he won the Nationals or whatever he won, the USA Nationals. He said Jay was there. He said he was really good.
Yeah.
Jay's got a great eye for that.
You want to hear, Edgar Fletcher was so good. And, you want to hear a funny Edgar Fletcher story?
Sure.
Let me pull up a good picture of him. This guy, man, did he blow it, this guy? I'm going to pull up a good picture of him so while I'm talking about it, people can look at his face. This guy had it all. Arms, chest, small waist, vacuum, legs. He had really good legs, too. He even had glutes when he would diet. You remember, what was the one show he did where he actually looked amazing, but he almost died because he was like over dehydrated?
Oh, that was
It was the USA, I remember, right?
Yes, it was the USA in the USA in 93.
Oh, it was the 93. So maybe that was it then.
Yeah.
And I think after that, he was afraid.
That is a non-Jimmy bicep.
Yeah. Oh, that's 100% legit. Yeah.
Dave, he's a very reminiscent of a more powerful version of Theory Pastel. Yes. That's what he was going to become.
Yeah, I think he would have been better than Terry Pastel.
Because don't see that front double bicep right there. Yeah. He had a very, very Pastel small frame.
Yep.
And very narrow. He's very narrow, but his hips are very narrow too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, on stage, if you saw someone like him, if you saw him backstage, doing photo shoots, you'd say, God, he's just too small. And then he starts hitting some shots, and you say,
he's a freak. He's round, cartoonish muscle too. He's got.
Yeah.
Well, Edgar Fletcher.
I mean, what's that picture? Look, Dave, that picture's 30 years old.
Yeah, at least.
How is that front double bicep do in the Nationals in USA today?
Well, he would have won. The guy is unbelievable. That was his third place right there.
Yeah, he wasn't at his best there. He was at his absolute crazy best as the year that he passed out.
Yeah, and I think after that he became a little gun shy too about the diuretics and stuff because he never even here you can see he's a little smooth. He never really came in really hard after that, and then he just stopped. Crazy. So Edgar Fletcher, 96 Nationals. Okay, I'm my first pro. Well, it's my second pro qualifier, third pro qualifier, something like that. I'm working for a company by the name of Huge Nutrition. I'm on the packages. They have a big booth there. The guy Pete Scalisi, who actually ran that company Gear, that was his first foray into supplement companies, and he was paying me pretty well. And he brought everyone out from Long Island. My sister was working the booth. At the time, my girlfriend was working the booth. Doug Wentz, the whole Long Island crew was in that booth. All with all the tubs that had my picture on them. And I designed all the products for him. I formulated them all for him. And so it was a big booth. Edgar Fletcher walks up to the booth and says, hey, I should be back behind that booth, not this chump or something like that. Or, some derogatory, statement he made about me. And, and at the time, the girl I was dating was like, who I wound up marrying, Barbara. She went crazy on him because she used to love to argue with people who would say anything derogatory. I used to tell, just don't worry about it. Just ignore these people. I don't give a shit about what anyone thinks. My sister and I were berating him to no end about what a loser he was, to come up to the booth and say that. And he was very jealous of me for some reason. I don't know why. My physique couldn't touch his, but I had the freaky mass. I was always in good shape, and so I was popular. So he thought like someone should have been handing him free money. You know what I mean? That's how he saw it. And when I went to Dubai in 1996 with Milos, Laura Bass, may she rest in peace, and Edgar was the other bodybuilder who was there. Edgar wouldn't hang out with us at all. He completely was on his own. He would not be in the realm of even being close to us. He would not go to the gym with us. He would not eat with us. Nothing. Just because because he had such a problem with me. And I never said two words. I actually really admired his physique a lot. And it was kind of depressing to see what a sore loser he was, or about the whole thing,
How much time did you in each day did you and Milos talk about anabolics?
How many hours were we awake? We were awake 18 hours, probably 17 and a half hours was talking about anabolics. At least. I think Milos had a notebook out. He was taking notes. I should ask him for the like they have a transcript of like when they have the important meetings. He probably has the whole thing transcribed that we.
You needed a stenographer, quit stenographer there to
know what?
You could put it in a book and sold it.
Milos and I were on the same page pretty much about it was amazing how many. It was like he had his own little theories, I had mine, and they were very similar, and we never ever had talked before that. So
then he must have got crazy excited about it, right?
Oh, and then they were bringing us anabolics, just giving us bags full of shit.
Oh, God.
And I'll never forget, we're in the lobby. Now, remember, in 1996, Dubai had one hotel. It was like it was like Qatar, when you went to Qatar, and there was the one hotel that Ed Connors designed. There was one hotel, and they kept telling us how they're going to they're building this crazy city, and all you saw 24 hours a day with skyscrapers with just the scaffolding. That's it. There was nothing else. You could tell something was being built, but in a million years, I would never have conceptualized.
Because they planned it all at once.
Yes.
They didn't it wasn't sporadic. It was like pre-planned out.
They must have had slave labor working, because they worked 24 hours. There was never a moment where there weren't people building, okay? All around the clock. So,
yeah.
What's my point?
About the anabolics. The point, of course, is bodybuilding, the anabolics. You and Milos talking 24/7 about that they're bringing you anabolics.
Oh, no, I remember. So we go down for breakfast the first morning, and Milos, and we're ordering, and Milos is like, I want 14 egg whites and oatmeal and I'm like, I'll have what he's having, at this point, whatever, So they bring out, the eggs were like poached. They were like floating in water, these eggs, and they were disgusting. And the 14 eggs looked like they might have been five total eggs. And they were just floating, and then the oatmeal, and then and the bill, they brought the bill with the thing. It was like $87, like for his, and $87 for mine.
Yeah.
They charged like $5 an egg white. Milos went nuts. Oh my God. I need the chicken breast. I need this. I need that. This is unbelievable. I don't pay for this. We have the promoter. You call him, and they didn't.
Well, he's worried too. He's going to go into a negative nitrogen balance on 5 days.
He started losing. And it was great, because for once in my life, I didn't have to be the guy who was complaining, because Milos was a way bigger complainer than I was.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm I'll just let him handle it. So eventually, they got the people who had brought us there to come down to the hotel, because Milos must have made such a stink that they called the guy up, and he came down, and Milos is like, I need food. We need to have chicken breast, and we need to have potatoes and the rice, and he's like, all right, make us a list. And they're trying to give us the bill, and he's like, no, don't worry, you don't pay for anything. They wouldn't let us pay for anything. But so they had to bring more food out from the kitchen. God knows what they must have charged these people that were paying for us. And to make up for it, they took us to, actually, I don't think Milos was with us. These guys wanted me to come to their gym there in Dubai. And they wanted me to like train there. I had to train legs for the day. And they're like, I guess it was like bragging power because they could say Dave Palumbo was coming to the gym. And so all these kids, there was 1 million people there when I got there. And I gave a little, I was answering people's questions and I was working out there. And then they took me to eat. And I think I've told the story before. And I said, they're like, what do you want? I'm like, well, I'm dieting now. So I said, I guess fish. I'll have, fish and some rice, some white rice. And they're like, okay. So they come out like 2 minutes later and they literally with fish flopping around on this big platter. And they're like, which fish do you want?
Oh, you got to pick it.
I thought, they're gonna give me fresh fish. So I said, I'll take that one. It was this big, might have been some kind of grouper or something like that. And they're like, okay. So 20, 30 minutes pass. I'm like, where the fuck is the food already? Finally comes out. They brought the whole fish they cooked. They filleted the
whole thing?
The fish. It had to be this big, Chris.
Yeah.
And they had a bowl of rice that Victor Richards couldn't even finish if he tried. And you know what the funny thing was? I ate the whole fish because the bones were there. I had to eat around all the bones and everything, but it was absolutely delicious, and it was amazing. And then we met up with all the other people. With I think Edgar might have been with us at this point because he had to. Laura Bass, Milos, and they took us to the Nike outlet. They had a Nike outlet there, and they wanted to buy us shoes.
Yeah,
I mean, they really treated us well. We all got free Nikes. And, of course, they asked me what size I was. I said, well, I'm a size 13 and a half, which is what I was at the time. But little did I know that, number one, Nikes blow up the sizes, and my my arch must have collapsed. I went from a 13 and a half. I was a 16. They were going crazy, the people in play. 16, oh, I've never seen a 16. Yeah. I said, you have any? They're like, oh, we got everything here. We got everything here. So they hooked me up with a size 16.
You're like the Bob Lanier, Dave, of bodybuilding with the big foot.
Like, even to this day, Nikes, the bigger your foot, the more inaccurate your size is. So, like in a Nike, I wear a 15 now, but in every other shoe, I wear a 14. So they lie. I think they do that so that the basketball players look like they have bigger feet than they really do. Well,
Dave, I didn't know you then, but I did know Milos, and Milos is not. I bet you have not changed much, and Milos has definitely not changed.
No. And you know what? Milos and I we got along great. We really did. I really enjoyed myself with him. There was a story I told with Laura Bass where Laura Bass had her boyfriend was there, who I actually became friends with later, and he owned a gym in New Jersey, a Gold's Gym. Dennis, some Lebanese guy said something to Laura, and I don't think it was done like in a malicious way, but Dennis punched the guy in the nose, and you can't strike anyone in Dubai. It's like they could lock you up, for like forever there. You don't have to. And this guy was so offended that he wanted to press charges, and this was before we guest posed. I think I've told the story before.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, you didn't? So, they wanted to arrest Dennis, and they were going to lock him up, and they were going to take his passport from him. So, the diplomat in me, I became my father all of a sudden. I'm like, I said, and Laura was getting a little upset. And I'm like, Laura, this is serious. This guy was so pissed off, which by all tokens he should have been. You don't punch people in the face, but Dennis was like, fuck this guy. So I had to sit down and negotiate terms of the surrender, so to speak. I said, look,
what were they?
Because the guy was there with us. He was a bodybuilder. He was Lebanese. And I said, look, what can Dennis do, for you? Because there's a crowd of 2,000 people waiting for us to guess what can Dennis do so that we can squash this whole thing? He must apologize to me. I said, all right, I think I could.
Easy enough. For you, Dave, it's easy enough. Okay, apologize, sorry.
I can facilitate that. He goes, no, he must apologize in front of the whole 2,000 people.
I knew you were going to say that. I'm like,
all right, you know what? I would have done it, right? I'm like, this is easy.
You would have.
I said, I can handle this. So Laura was with me, and I said, Laura, I don't know what you're going to do, but you got to convince Dennis. I know he's mad at this guy, and he doesn't like him. He's got to apologize to this guy. She's like, he's never gonna go for this. I said, Laura, he's not going to be going home with us. He's staying here. They took his passport, so I have to go. She's like, you got to talk to him. She's like, he's not going to listen to me. I said, so I got in the room with Dennis. I said, listen, Dennis, I know you don't like this guy. I know he insulted Laura or whatever, but that's, they don't respect women, at least at that time. Maybe now it's different. At the time, they don't really respect women. They didn't even like the fact that Laura was there. They wouldn't even let her train at the gym with us. So I said, you got to understand there's different customs here. You're going to have to apologize to this guy in front of the crowd. If you don't do that, they're not letting you go home. Not to mention this crowd's going to go crazy because they're waiting for us to guest pose. So I know you don't want to do it, but please, I'm begging you, just go out there and say, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I should never put my hand. It was a misunderstanding, and let's let the games begin, type of thing. So I don't know how I got him to go along. I calmed him down enough that he did it, and we guest posed an hour and a half later than we should have. So these people, Chris, were all sitting there for an hour. Not one person left their seat. Dennis apologized. We all went out and guest posed one at a time. Edgar, me, Laura, the Lebanese guy, Milos, and it was a hit. I mean, I've never seen a crowd of people. I actually think the Sheikh of Dubai at the time, who was a big bodybuilder, I think he was there too. He was a big bodybuilding fan.
Yeah, who was it? It was still the same.
It's probably the same guy. Yeah, he was young then.
Dubai. I don't
remember what his name was, but yeah. They had just built the racetrack there. They had a crazy Breeders' Cup. I think they used to hold there or something like that. But it was fun. And Milos and I were laughing our asses off the entire time because Milos and I thought it was hysterical. But at the same time, I didn't want to see this. I didn't want to see Dennis. And I didn't even like Dennis because I was kind of mad that he did this. Afterwards, after he broke up with Laura and they weren't even together, he was friends with Jason Arnst, and Jason had introduced him to me again. Of course, we knew each other because we spent the whole week together, and we became very good friends after that. But I still break his balls every time I talk to him or see him and remind him about that whole incident. He was young. He was very young at the time. So that's my my Milos.
I'm surprised Milos is he's documented every contest he's ever done, every guest pose, and everything.
Now, ironically, that was
together.
Now, ironically, that whole story that took place in 1996 in like March, or something around there. I flew back from Dubai. At the time, there was no direct flights. It took like 18 hours to get back to New York. I remember I didn't sleep at all on the plane. I told you because they were smoking on the airplane, and I had to sit in the flight attendant seat. That it was the most uncomfortable trip of my life. And I flew back, and my girlfriend picked me up at the airport and drove me right into the city. There was the Metropolitan Championships were taking place then. And who was the guest poser? My good friend, Nasser El-Sambadi. Now, I'd never met Nasser at that point. This was 96. Nasser was obviously great, doing awesome at that point in bodybuilding. I think he had just won the Arnold, right? 96?
96.
Right?
I don't
know. I think he won the Arnold that year or something. Or maybe the year before. Yeah. Maybe 95. No, Francois won 95, right?
Yeah.
Nasser won one of those. But anyway, Nasser was big hot shit.
I think Nasser won in 97.
He was guest posing. My friend Josh Freeman, who's still my friend, was driving Nasser around. I don't know I forgot how they hooked up, but he was like Nasser's slave. And Nasser would treat him like a slave too, but he didn't mind because he was like a big fan of Nasser's. And he's like, you got to take a picture with Nasser backstage. Remember, I had just flown.
You posted
yeah, there's a picture. It's a very well-known picture. So I just took my stuff off. I still look shredded, even though I was in an airplane for 18 hours. And that's the picture that's always up of Nasser and I backstage.
It's where you look bigger and smarter than Nasser.
That's why Nasser hated me after that. Yeah. So, and then that 6 weeks later, I did the USA Championships. I came in way too flat, and then 8 weeks after that is when I did the Nationals with Jay Cutler winning, And that was the show that Edgar Fletcher pulled all that stuff. So that all happened in the 96, the time period there.
Yeah. Who was second that year when Jay won?
Tom Prince.
You were third? Who was second?
Tom Prince. No, Orville Burke was third and I was fourth.
Okay, yeah, Tom Prince. Yeah, Tom Prince. Yeah.
May he rest in peace. Holy mackerel. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone. So
yeah, Nasser's gone. Lower back. All your stories.
Yeah.
The dog. Yeah. The dog. I mean, it's fitting, right?
Yeah. Back then I had my other little dogs, but yeah. It's crazy. It was a wacky time. But this was 90. The 96 was crazy. And you got to remember, there was no social media. There was no one could take videos of anything. Can you imagine if I would have had video and pictures from that trip with Milos and oh my God, the stuff that I would have been great.
Great keepsake stuff,
I know. So 93 was a great year. I really think that was like the heyday of amateur bodybuilding because you had such good start. I mean, Wheeler had just won the USA the year before in 92. Levrone the year before that, 91.
Yeah.
I mean, Ronnie was on the scene. No one knew about him, but he had won the world championships in 91 after placing 5th at Nationals. Yeah. So all these guys were amateurs now that were maturing into these soon to be very, very dominant pro bodybuilders. I mean, and this was the breeding. And that was 30 years ago today, and 30 years later, we're still talking about them. So that tells you how good they were.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mike Francois' career was cut short because he was diagnosed with colitis and he had to have his his large intestine removed, his colon completely removed, and he didn't want to bodybuild after that, right, Chris? What was
I mean, he couldn't, he was having issues before, he was having issues, Dave, being dehydrated in prep,
right?
Because colitis, was just like constant diarrhea.
Yeah.
And then it just, it got. I think, it's so funny as I know exactly. It's pathetic. I couldn't tell you exactly where I was in things that I should remember. You know what I mean? But when it comes to bodybuilding, I can tell you, I was in Aventura, Florida, when I had my flip cell phone, and I didn't hear from Mike, and then he had called me, or his wife had called me and said, call us. My phone didn't work, so I had to run to a cell phone. And I called him, and she told me that he had a huge episode with his colitis.
What year was that? 96?
That was 96. He was getting ready for the Arnold, and it was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks out, and he was just gargantuan. His training was really good. But even before that, that might have been 97. Dave, I can't even remember, but if you backtrack, he had issues after winning the Arnold with, having issues with muscle fullness because of colitis.
Yeah. And let's not forget, 94, Dennis Newman wins the USA, and then a month later was diagnosed with leukemia.
I was in Bill Dobbins's. I was at Bill Dobbins's house.
Poor you.
Yeah. No, it was a week after the Olympia. I told you that story about.
Was he playing his guitar? Was he playing his guitar for you?
No. We were there forever because Joe was paying him by the hour, probably. And I tell you about finding that protein can or something that said Linda Murray, 4-time Miss Olympia, and I'm like, the Olympia was 3 days ago.
And he was already he had already shot the can.
They had Bill Dobbins.
Laura's ads were. Linda's ads were made already, and the show wasn't even over yet.
Linda won the Olympia in 94 by like a point over my ex.
Yeah.
And I was at Bill Dobbins' house. Bill Dobbins was a photographer, very phenomenal photographer.
Yeah. That
Joe would pay as an independent contractor. I don't believe he was under, I think it was, billing Joe out by the hour. And they would take hours and, the photo shoots would be days.
Well, Dobbins was notorious. Used to play the guitar. Didn't he start out playing the guitar, getting her in the mood, for this photo shoot?
Because I was
not with you there.
you know, I went to the photo shoots and stuff, and they were in his house, and he had the studio or whatever, and I was like bored out of my mind and looking around, and I sat on like a chase, like a couch, and I looked down, and there was a Weider product, and it said Linda Murray, Miss Olympia, 90, whatever it was, like 94. Yeah, 94. It was like, so it said 90. The Olympia was like Miss Olympia 91, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, well, the Olympia was like 2-3 days ago because we went straight from Chicago there.
Right.
I'm like, how did they get the product done already? And then I realized,
Yeah, the fix was in. Yeah, she had no chance of losing that show. Yeah,
none, 0.
But that's yeah, Joe.
So if you're watching, Wayne, that was under your you know.
He'll say it was Joe. It was all Joe and Ben. Yeah.
Well, it was all Joe, but you're still the promoter.
Yeah, sure, true.
You know,
I'm sure he knew about it. So.
Oh, I'm sure. So Dave, there's nothing I could do about it, Dave. There's nothing I could do. I for weeks on end, I fought with Joe and Ben.
You know what? Only in his defense, I'm sure. Can you imagine how difficult it must have been to have to deal with Joe and Ben, both of them?
You want to know why, Dave? You want to know why?
Why?
Because Joe would say A and Ben would say B. And then Ben would say, ask Joe, and Joe would say, ask Ben. Believe me, I know the shuffle.
Wayne told me that.
Listen. And then this is how it works. Joe would say A, Ben would say B, and then Ben would say, go back and ask Joe, and Joe would say, okay, B. And then wait, then when you go back to Ben, and Ben would say little b. Did he mean little b or big B? You know, on any topic, it was just nonsense of like, can you just nobody can, you know.
Wayne told me
forgive me, Joe, for saying. Forgive me, Joe. Nobody can. Joe became a straight shooter as he got very old, like years after that, 100% straight. But at that point, it was like, oh my gosh, you don't know if you're going.
They must have known what they were doing because they were very successful at whatever they did.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
But
only they knew the answer: A or B, big B or little b.
Wayne used to told me that once that all they did was ask him how much money they were making. Like at the Olympia, like the show would be over, they'd be like, "How much do we make?" Wayne's like, I haven't counted everything up yet.
Yeah.
Because Wayne was running the show for them. It wasn't really Wayne's show. Wayne was being paid something, but it was their show. So all that work Wayne did was for them, essentially.
Wayne was, I heard, filling up some type of spy balloon to fly over the Arnold Classic coming up. But sorry, Wayne, that the U.S. military ended up thinking it was from China.
I lost Chris. What happened? He was making me laugh too hard. I think he was taken off the air by the Weiders, the ghost of Weiders, Joe Weider. What happened?
The spy balloon, Wayne's spy balloon is interfering with my internet. Your balloon, Wayne, is supposed to be flying over Columbus, Ohio, but the military shot it down.
I heard that. You got it, man. They got Branch Warren to shoot it down. Him and Brian Dobson took it out. Took it down. Oh boy. Wow. You know what? The history of bodybuilding is really fun because there's so many fun stories. You know, at the time, probably the people involved were not happy with a lot of the drama that went on. You know, because you're so immersed in it, and it's so relevant. Looking back, even the stuff that happened to me, I laugh at a lot of this stuff because it's like it is pretty comical in the scheme of life, right? That how bent out of shape we all got over like stupid shit, like bodybuilding placings and stuff like that. But and all the drama that goes along with people who are jealous and envious, and now everyone does it right online, right? There's no behind the scenes anymore. People just do it right on social media. If they don't like you, they fucking tear you apart on social media.
Yeah, well, they tear you apart, and other people do too. And the thing with social media is that anyone could tear you apart, previously, but now it's, besides it's out there, you get the pile-on effect. You know what I mean?
I think that the industry, our bodybuilding industry, has gotten closer together because it's almost like it's like us against social media, the world, right? So like we probably find ourselves defending bodybuilders more maybe that we might have been arguing with, only because we're we're all in this together. We got to protect ourselves against all these lunatics.
Well, you know what? Because before, like one competitor doing the Olympia, kind of like the biggest contest on the planet, could like criticize another competitor, also one of the best bodybuilders on the planet.
Right.
And you know what? You've earned kind of the ability to get critical, of your co-competitor in the best sport on earth. But now people who, are behind a keyboard with 9-inch arms and they say they have 20-inch arms are critical of people. So because of that, I think, the athletes, to some degree, you know what I mean, would rally around each other. It's one thing for, Ann Valier to criticize Hunter, or I'm just or he's pretty vocal, or, Hunter to say something negative about somebody who comes ahead of him, or Samson or whatever. But it's a whole nother thing when somebody, is extremely critical of them and they've never competed. And yet they have a voice. Believe that's where we are right now. They have a voice.
I'm kind of happy, Chris. Aren't you happy that you didn't compete during social media years?
Yeah, I would say it would be hard to. It's hard for anyone who's not. It's
very
hard
distracting.
To block out social media.
Yeah,
because
it would be very distracting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because people do this, which is a lie. Well, I don't really care. Well, of course you do. I mean, the whole idea that you said you don't care is kind of caring, because if you didn't care, you wouldn't even say that.
No, probably. Because now I could give I don't care what anyone says about me because it doesn't matter. I'm not competing. But I think when I was competing, people were being critical. It might have bothered me. I think it would have bothered me.
Of course it would. Of course it would. Because there's a difference. One, you're competing, and then two, you're way younger. So when you're way younger, to some degree, a lot more bothers you anyway. It takes time to thicken your skin. Against criticism.
But there's a lot more opportunities to make money for yourself nowadays also. So in essence, it's more liberating, and it's it puts your own destiny in your own hands. If you're not a lazy guy, you can make a lot of money. Back then you had to pray that you were going to get a contract with someone that was going to pay you some cash. Luckily you and I always had something going on, but a lot of guys had nothing. They had no contracts. And so for them, they had to work a real job, and it was tough. It was tough to make ends.
Well, that's when I went back to, we started with Cormier, and I know for that USA, I know how many hours in 91 and 92. Ask him next time you see him, you have him on the show. How many hours did you work a week, as a bouncer and as security in Los Angeles when you were prepping for those shows, 91 USA and 92 USA? There wasn't a lot of opportunity for him. He was, just trying to be number one and hope for a contract.
Right. No, true, 100%. Well, it was a great year, 93. I hadn't even competed at a national level show at that point, but I definitely was bit by the bodybuilding bug by then. And 94 would be the first national show I did in Junior USA. And I remember it was an intimidating landscape, but it was great because it was so, I always felt it was so motivating to go out to Gold's Venice and train with these guys. Everyone was so into the sport. It was in the lifestyle. It was so much fun to hang out with bodybuilders and go out to eat with them and talk shop. And I don't know if that exists today anymore as much, just because pretty much people talk shop via the internet. They don't do it in person anymore. And it was a different scenario back then. People actually had to fly out to Cali and hang out with each other there in that setting. And that, I think the bodybuilders today will really never have that. They do to a certain degree, going out to Flex Lewis's, the Dragon's Lair there. And there is still some people at Venice. I go, it's not a lot. But I think that heyday is long past. And I don't think we're going to see it anymore. I really don't. Just because it's not relevant anymore to be out in California, because it doesn't matter. There's no magazines. The magazines are now this thing right here, this phone in your hand, that's your magazine right there. And as good as you are with this thing, and as good as you are at taking pictures, that's how successful you'll be in the sport. So it's a brave new world.
Yeah, no, everything's changed. I was thinking that you saw the National Enquirer just sold the game.
Oh, did it really? I didn't even know.
Yeah, it's just amazing. You know, some people's timing. Someone once told me in real estate, they said timing is everything, and I didn't know what that meant. You know, you hear these like cliches like location, location, location. Then you figure out, oh, that's what that means. Or someone once told me timing is everything in real estate. I'm like, gosh, what's that mean? And then I figured that out. You know, Joe's timing. Joe sold his magazines at the absolute 1,000% historic peak of potential to sell a magazine at. So he started that thing when he was a teenager, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he built it and built it and built it, and he sold it for $350 million.
Crazy, right?
At its peak. And Dave, I'm dead serious. Remember when Wayne said, you know, they wanted to know how much they made at the Olympia? Right. Joe wanted to know after he sold it for $350 if he could have got more.
He's very lucky he sold it at the perfect time. I
think it was $350. Somebody can correct me.
I heard that too.
210 or $250.
And they tried to say the Olympia wasn't included. You remember that whole thing they pulled?
Yeah, and so when David Pecka bought it, you know, it was already like within a few years, it was like valued. It's like buying a building, and you think you're buying a watch, and you think that watch you buy it for $10,000. You think I can sell it next year for $12,000, and all of a sudden it goes to $8,000. Or you buy a building and you realize, oh, COVID, giant office building somebody bought in Manhattan. Yeah. The $400 million building is now worth $300. The magazines just started to go
tank,
and then they just, I mean, the speed at which they torpedoed, and Joe died, but I don't mean that in a negative way. Joe would have loved to have been around to like get the satisfaction of like, wow, I sold them at the absolute peak, perfect time. He didn't live long enough to realize that.
Yeah, no, I know, but look, like you said, it's all about timing, and that's really what it's about. It's even today, it's about timing. I see people that launch, apps that are successful. I see other people that launch apps that look like they should be successful, and then they know they're not successful because it's just not the right time. Same thing with real estate. If you don't buy the property at the right time, you can fucking bankrupt yourself. And then if you buy it at the right time, you can make a fortune selling it a year later. So it's all timing. That's life's timing, and that's what it's all about. So. All right, tomorrow I have to go in for my pre-surgical testing, not for my heart surgery, but I'm getting cardiac cath on Wednesday. They're going to run a little camera up through my my wrist into my heart, which I'll probably have to be put under at least for a few minutes. And they shoot some dye into the coronary arteries. They want to make sure there's no blockages. I'm pretty sure I have no blockages already. I've gotten enough cardiac CT scans, but it's part of the pre-surgical procedure for me to get the aortic, aneurysm repaired. So that I'm doing on Wednesday. I get tested tomorrow. I guess they can do some blood work and some chest X-ray. And Wednesday I'll be out of commission probably, at least for the beginning part of the day. The good thing is that my good friend, Dr. Brian Arseman, who's my cardiologist, he's also a bodybuilder. He'll be doing my cardiac cath. And so a lot of people always ask about, what's going on. That's going to be happening on Wednesday, and I'll find out what the results are on Friday from I'll be in my surgeon's office, and then I'm going to set the date for the surgery, which will probably be taking place the week after the Arnold Classic. So I won't be doing it before that. My secrets to becoming a diet guru course, however, will be the last weekend of the month of February. So that's going to be February 25th. So you can sign up. There's a link at my davepalumbo.com website, or you can go right to the Palumbo University website. Sign up. That's going to be the secrets to becoming a diet guru course. That's my course. We go over everything. I teach you how to be a diet coach, diet, supplementation, performance enhancing drugs. It's a 9-hour class. It's recorded, which is great. So you can go back and rewatch it. It's a nice little interface we use, a teaching interface. And, if I drop dead in my surgery, this could be the last guru course of all time. So you might want to get in. If you were thinking about taking the guru course, you might want to take this one because there might not be another one. So you never know. Hopefully, I will come out of surgery fine, and I'll be back again for another one.
You just gave a reason to like double the price on this potential.
That's right. One. Yeah, I'm getting desperate. I'm trying any marketing technique I could possibly use, and if I have to use a little Jewish guilt, I'll throw that in there too.
Sean Ray would say you've been conning the bodybuilders. Chris Aceto conning bodybuilders for 35 years.
All right, well, guys, thank you for joining us on this Super Bowl Sunday. Remember, tomorrow is, oh no, not tomorrow. I guess Tuesday's Valentine's Day. So make sure you get your loved one something special on Valentine's Day. And my birthday, Chris, is going to be, I think it's on Friday this year, right?
Yeah. 17th. What's your birthday? 17th, right?
The 17th, Jim Mannion, myself, on February
Jim Mannion's birthday is the same as yours.
Yep. We call each other.
I'll FedEx you your birthday gift, and I'll forward it to address, and you can send it to Jim right after, so I don't have to buy it.
This could be my last birthday, so you might want to give me something really nice for my birthday. A little guilt in there. No, thank you guys once again for joining us on the Super Bowl Sunday. I know it was a busy day for you, and hopefully you enjoyed today's show. If you did, let us know in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we will be back again next week. And as we say every week here with Heavy Muscle Radio,
the truth hurts.
Good night, everyone.